The brush belt is what makes a lot of our pinpoint planning accuracy possible. Let's dive into the brush belt and go through all the components with it, and I'll also show you what you need to look at when maintaining and checking it over from year to year. The brush belt and the brush belt cartridge are a relatively low maintenance piece. However, there are a few things that you want to inspect either during season, post-season, as you're using the planter. So to remove the brush belt, simply pull off your top covers. After you remove the top covers, you can drop the tension on the springs on the actual brush belt itself. So when you're in here, you're going to want to look at the tension to make sure that the belt hasn't stretched or hasn't been damaged, that you can put a fair amount of tension on the brush itself. So when you release the tension, pull the tension out, slide it up, then simply just pull the belt out itself. Now, what you're going to want to do when you're inspecting this brush, you're going to want to check for wear. Basically, how much gap is between the outside of the brush belt cartridge and the actual bristles of the belt themselves. So as it wears, you're going to have, the bristles will wear down. When you get one through parts, there will be a yellow line that's going to run all the way across it. Rule of thumb that I have is if you can see a 1/4 inch or more gap between these bristles and the outside of the housing, you should be replacing your brush belts. Now, as you're inspecting the belt, you're going to want to look for any damaged bristles, broken, twisted, bent, ripped off. Sometimes what will happen is if you store the planters with the belts and the bowls on, where the belt comes into the top of the bowl will, in the meter housing I should say, the bowl will cause these bristles to bend and deform, and it's really hard to get them back into the shape they are. So that's why we strongly suggest that when you store your planter for the winter time, to remove your bowls and remove your belts. If you don't remove your belts, at a minimum, please remove the tension from each individual belt. One thing to keep in mind though is if you are not going to be removing your belts every year and you're just going to drop the tension, is to not forget to put the tension back on before you try to run the planter. If you forget to put the tension on, what will happen is this drive roller here will spin at the rate of speed it's supposed to spin, but while it's doing that, it's going to be slipping on the inside of the brush belt. This is basically a rubber surface, so what you're going to have is you're going to have a rubber belt and a rubber drive wheel that are running and slipping against each other, causing a lot of heat, and it's going to wear on this drive wheel as well as the belt itself. So inspect your belt, inspect your drive wheel, inspect your tensioner wheel on the bottom. Another place to check and make sure it's good is at the way bottom, there's a little wire. This wire helps clean off the excess dirt. If for some reason a seed might stick in it or something like that, it helps clean all that excess stuff off to make sure the belt's clean as it's coming back around and through. Sticky seed treatments, things like that. Inspect that wire. It will wear and it is replaceable. To replace it, simply pull this here and then pull the wire out. I'm not going to do it here, but pull the wire out and put the new one back in. As you're inspecting the meter cartridge with the belt out, look at the wear guides on the seed side of the cartridge. Also, inspect your sensor. Make sure you wipe it clean. Try not to use anything abrasive when you go ahead and wipe it off, but clean it out. Make sure everything's clean in there. and simply put it back in place. This high-speed seed sensor is the brains of the system. This seed sensor works and tells you exactly what your seed spacing is and how it's planting. This planter here is equipped with the exact shot system. This seed sensor also feeds into the exact shot system, which allows the planter itself and the fertilizer system to squirt a stream of fertilizer on the seed itself. Another thing to look at is your actual drive. So inside here, basically a bevel drive gearbox. It's similar to a rack and a pinion on a differential of a truck or tractor or whatever. Make sure this turns freely. We have had issues in the past with, especially in really, really fine dirt and dust. That dirt and dust can get in between. There's 2 sealed ball bearings in here. That dirt and dust can get in between these sealed ball bearings or in them, and it makes it drag and turn hard. If it's turning hard, a lot of the times what you'll get is you'll get an alarm in the cab and it'll completely shut a row unit off. It'll say brush belt amps too high. If that's the case, get out of the plant or tractor, come back here and spin this to make sure it spins freely. A lot of the times, if it is spinning hard, if something got in there to bind it up, if you spin it a few times, you can free it up. But I would suggest to probably replace that gearbox when you have a chance to do so. To remove the gearbox, it's actually very, very forward and very simple. So remove the cartridge just like we've done before. Remove the belt. And all you need to do is grab your gearbox, give it a quick little turn, and it pulls off. This gearbox itself is a serviceable part outside of the brush belt cartridge. When you get one through parts, it'll come just like what I'm showing you here in my hands. Let's put it back together. When you slide your brush belt in, make sure you're sliding it in past these 2 wear guards on the bottom, so the bristles don't get pinched when you go and close that lid. After you get the belt in place, and there's no bristles in there, I like to go ahead and take and put tension on the belt itself. Slide on your lower cover. Make sure the two tabs snap into place, followed by your upper cover. Now when you slide your upper cover in, same thing. Make sure you're not pinching any bristles as you're putting it on.